Okay, as we have our animation already prepared, we can start doing the cameras. We'll have the overview of the cameras and how to animate them and how to make the camera shakes and all of that stuff. So let's delete time dilation for now from this shot and delete all of those shots just for the sake of copying the shot, already having the subsequence in it. I usually place the cameras not in the scene, but I create them in a sequencer here because it will create the cine camera actor, which is already converted to spawnable. I don't want to add the cinema camera actor into the scene here and play around with it and try and to move it and put it in each sequence each time. I just prefer to set it up right here and turn it spawnable. So we'll go through the settings of the camera, but only the settings which are not duplicated, because there are some post-processing settings. They basically are copying the settings of the post-processing volume, which we will go through in the next module. So for now, we'll only stick with the focusing, sensor size, focal length, and so on. So when you create the camera, it will automatically create the camera cuts. Remember, you should not ever create in your subsequence the camera or camera cut track, because in that case, when you render, it will render the camera cut track from the subsequence and your shot may be ruined and you'll just waste your time. So never create the camera cut track or camera actor inside the subsequence with your animation. Your animation should only contain your animated assets. Here we have the camera actor and camera cuts. I'm not also the fan of creating multiple cameras in one sequence. I would better duplicate this sequence and change the camera, because you have the versioning in that case and you can just say the naming alas shot 001 version 2, and you always can get back to what you have created and to previous or next version depending on what the client wants. So here we have the camera and we are going to animate it just by following the car. In this shot, it will be following the car and then switch to the car that flies here, and when it lands it will be showing us basically two cars here and will continue following like really close to it, or maybe move it to the side a little bit. So my approach to animation, first let's try to keyframe the camera and then we will be checking other functions like focal length, focus, and squeeze factor. So first of all, I'll show you like manual key animation. I try to avoid this cinematic camera rail rig for the camera, this one, because when you put the camera and when the camera travels on some curve, like for example, there is like a point curve which curves the camera. When the camera passes through this point, the movement is really like robust. It's just like this, really stiff. So I can show you actually if I attach this camera. So let's add actor to camera and attach this cine camera actor to our rig rail. So when attaching, select preserve all or preserve current. So preserve current and attach to camera rig rail, and it will maintain the position in this environment relative to this rail rig. Now in the camera rail you can add transform and add current position on rail. Put it here, and if you change this one, the camera will be moving on the rail. But let's move it from 0 to 1, for example. Let's disable the repeat and go to the end and put here and place the camera at position number 1, so that's the furthest point. And if we look at this camera, it will just, it wobbles really unpleasant, so I really don't like it, how it behaves. Maybe let's move it faster a little bit. So it's just like, see, the spline points, they are not given this realistic feeling. So let's disable that and let's remove the transform of the camera. What I like to do is just, when animating manually, you should understand that it should also travel from point A to point B with the linear speed. So here I can add transform, make it linear, then go to the end of the sequence where the car lands, and probably let's make this shot shorter, like here, that the camera will just, you know, crash into our, let's disable the create the keys automatically, so it will just crash into the camera almost there, so like that probably, and transform that also into linear speed. So when it's driving, you will see this, like the car just like driving and boom, crashes into the camera. Let's move maybe a little bit further. So yeah, like this. Nice. And there will be our like first shot. And it just drives and boom, crashes into our camera. Then what I want to do is to make the camera look at our second flying car. So at this point approximately, I want it to look here, and there will be time dilation track too, but I do not do the transform, just the transform. I want to transform the rotation and put the rotation like cubic. So it's going to drive like this. Still here it is looking at the car, put the rotation, and then boom, it hits. So that's how our shot will look like. We even actually can extend this shot and move it a little bit further there, so we'll have a little bit more of time to do that, and put this transform here. Remove this keyframe because I would like to maintain it's looking at this car for a certain period of time. So let's transform that and move those rotation keyframes further away, and we'll start it a little bit later on. So like that, and it just flying, boom, and it hits there. Okay, so and let's get back on the rotation there. Transform the rotation, make it also smooth, and let's see how it looks like. So yeah, it really goes fast, and there we can actually, from this point, we can start even, let's move it a little bit back. So just like driving there, looks at this car. This transition is too fast between those keyframes, so we can adjust this one and see how it looks like. And then it hits here. So let's move it a little bit further, like that. We can add a little bit of rotation here. Again, and see what it's looking for. So see what I did there. So basically we maintain the transform position, and it's linear because our cars are moving linear. So it's linear, and then it crashes here. End and start point are linear keyframes, and the keyframe for rotation only makes us feel like this insane movement. And now let's animate time dilation so it goes fast. And at this point I want the time dilation track, so I click track, time dilation track. At this point it is 1, so the regular speed, And here I want it to slow down like maybe 3 times. So I pick this frame, or like maybe 4 times and 0.25, and see how it looks like. Again, as I said, you should check this on simulation, but that will work pretty fine even in the sequencer. Here we'll see how it will render. So like that, the camera moves fast there, and just like boom, it lands. And I think here we can return the time dilation back to speed of 1, so the current playback speed. We can even move it a little bit earlier. So let's see. Slow motion and boom. Then it goes back to natural speed. But I want the cars just like, to pass by and expand basically this movement. And this is the last frame. So that's how it looks like. I think that's pretty cool. That is just simple animation of the camera movement.